Is this a second revolution for Bangladesh? In scenes some call reminiscent of 1971, the Prime Minister flees the country, ushering in a political rival to lead an interim government. All eyes are now on a promised upcoming election, but can the new leadership and the military maintain peace in the weeks to come? I'm Andrea Sankey, and today's Newsmaker is Bangladesh. Bangladesh's new Nobel Prize-winning interim leader says the feeling toward recent events in his country is only matched by what was experienced when Bangladesh won its independence from Pakistan. Weeks of deadly protests culminated in the resignation of Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina, who fled the country for India on Monday. Fears of a military takeover immediately ensued, but instead, Grameen Bank founder Muhammad Yunus was named leader of a transitional government. He'd been a key political rival of Sheikh Hasina, and the hope now is that his leadership will guide the country peacefully to a free and fair election. Here's a look now at what led to this pivotal moment.
Sheikh Hasina's 15-year reign in Bangladesh is over. Her immediate successor, at least in an interim government, will be the globally renowned Nobel laureate Muhammad Yunus. Last month's protests over the government's quota system turned violent when the ruling Awami League student wing and police clashed with anti-government protesters. The government response was to shut down the internet and call in the army. The situation partially calmed following a Supreme Court's decision to scrap most of the quotas. But demonstrators returned to the streets last week, demanding the resignation of the Prime Minister and the release of detainees. In all, more than 400 people were killed, including more than 100 on Monday alone, the deadliest day since the crisis began, but it proved the decisive moment. An angry crowd stormed Hasina's residency, prompting her to resign and flee the country for India. Then there was jubilation in the capital, Dhaka.
I feel so happy that our country has been liberated. We have been freed from a dictatorship. It's a Bengal uprising, what we saw in 1971, and now what we are seeing in 2024. It's a proud moment for us.
After the protesters' ultimatum, President Mohammad Shahabuddin dissolved the parliament, paving the way for an election to replace Hasina. He also ordered the release of opposition leader and Hasina's longtime rival, Khalida Zia, from house arrest. She was convicted of corruption charges in 2018 and barred from running against Hasina in the election that year. Student leaders who organized the protests then had a further demand met when the military agreed to ask the 84-year-old Nobel Peace Prize laureate Muhammad Yunus to lead the interim government.
He will help us advance the economy, as Muhammad Yunus is an economist and a well-known figure globally. A person like him would have been better as the Prime Minister of Bangladesh, but they are not involved in politics. It is enough that they are giving their support in our crucial time. They should hold a beautiful election in a democratic process, which will be a gift for all of us.
Yunus is currently on bail. He'd been sentenced to 6 months in jail for violating labour laws in January in what he said was a politically motivated case. But on Wednesday, a hastily arranged court hearing acquitted him. Speaking to the print online newspaper, Yunus called Hasina's ouster the second liberation of Bangladesh.
We want to now make a fresh start and create a beautiful country for ourselves. That's the commitment we do, and students and the young people will be leading our future.
India, which now hosts Hasina, is also concerned about the instability of its ally. The two countries share a 4,000-kilometre border and enjoy significant trade volume.
We repeatedly counseled restraint and urged that the situation be diffused through dialogue. Similar urgings were made to various political forces with whom we were in touch.
For now, Bangladesh is in a period of deep uncertainty. Many Awami League leaders are fearing for theirs and their families' lives, and while the anti-government protesters may have won the battle, there remains seething anger over the loss of so many lives.
So how bright is the future for Bangladesh now that a fresh election is in the cards? Well, joining me now to debate that and more are from Dhaka, member of the Human Rights Subcommittee of the Bangladesh Nationalist Party, and a lawyer at the Supreme Court of Bangladesh, Farzana Sharmin. From Athens, Ohio, human rights advocate and consultant at the Capital Punishment Justice Project, Mohammad Ashrafuzzaman, or Zaman Ashraf. And from Washington, director of the Wilson Center's South Asia Institute, Michael Kugelman. Thanks all so much for being with me. Farzana, I want to start with you in Dhaka and ask you to describe first what you're feeling, and as well as, what you're seeing on the streets now, because I've heard descriptions ranging from jubilation to actual fear, because there is still some violence and looting, as well as the threat of those seeking political revenge.
Yeah, thank you. It's just a few hours, I can say a day only, just we have been liberated. It's our second liberation. And the situation in the country right now is really an extraordinary situation, I must say, because Bangladesh has never faced like this situation before. So it is really very difficult to comment on the situation, but my feeling just right now is like we can breathe properly right now. We can hope at least that we can have a beautiful country, we can have a democratic country, we can be able to cast our vote, and we can be able to choose our representative who will be able to run the country properly. So we can at least hope now.
Right. But then tell us what you're apprehensive about. What do you think potentially could unravel from now on?
No, actually, the apprehension, I have said earlier, the situation is very extraordinary currently in this country. So it would not be a very easy task. Since 15 years, each and every institution of this country has been destroyed. The parliament has been made dysfunctional, the judiciary has been made dysfunctional, and the fascist regime, Sheikh Hasina regime, they had distracted each and every institution of this country, the education system, the price hike, the banking system, the corruption, everything. Thousands and millions of people have been subjected to extrajudicial killing, they have been subjected to enforced disappearance, and many more things. So it not be a very easy task for any of the government,
There's
the interim government.
There's a lot of rebuilding to do, yeah.
Yes, many more things to rebuild and to keep all the thing in order. It will be very, very challenging task for any of the government, right. I must say.
Okay, let me ask Zaman, where does all of this leave political dissidents really like you? Could this be a good thing? Might it lead you to perhaps return to Bangladesh? Or do you worry now that with more political freedom in the country, there could be more potentially destabilizing political infighting that will occur? Where do you stand?
Thank you very much. First of all, this is a great opportunity, I feel, for the country and the people, because we haven't seen such a huge people uprising and at the very high cost paid by the people at the same time, and mostly they are the young students. Hundreds have been killed. We still don't have the accurate number to refer. But what we know that all the security forces, including the armed forces, the paramilitary forces, and the regular police forces, they have been directly, institutionally involved in the massacres that have taken place in July and also in till the last hour when Sheikh Hasina left the country. So, and the same people are still in office. The entire bureaucracy is there, the entire police force, except the chief of police, who has been terminated kind of thing, but has not yet been arrested, as with his command responsibility to unleash the largest scale killing by the Bangladesh police. The armed forces also, although they are now cooperating with the rest of the anti-discrimination student movement leadership and the civil society to bring in an interim government, but many of the generals, they have bloods in their hands. The other forces like the border guards, rapid action battalion, we have the same judiciary where the judges publicly claimed to be the politicians under oath, and they occupy the offices of the Supreme Court judges. So in one hand, there is a huge opportunity, very high hope from the people that their aspirations will be fulfilled and justice will be afforded to the victims of larger scale extrajudicial executions, enforced disappearances, and torture, maiming. On the other hand, the fear of having the bureaucracy, the police administration, security forces, and the judiciary intact, where the deposed Prime Minister Sheikh Hasina left. So until these institutions are substantively and thoroughly reformed to an extent that they gaining the, acquire the capabilities to uphold justice without any
So again, you sound very similar to Farzana, that a lot could still actually, I guess, go wrong going forward if these institutions are not rebuilt properly. Let me turn to Michael, though, because Michael, when we actually discussed the protests a few weeks ago, you said that this was the biggest challenge to Sheikh Hasina's rule ever. And now we see it was too big a challenge for her to overcome. But so far, fears at least of a military takeover have not been realized. So how optimistic should Bangladeshis be? Or are you on the same page that it's wonderful to see this sort of, political change, but still so much could potentially go wrong?
Yeah, it's still in a very volatile, unpredictable, and uncertain environment right now. And I think for me, what I'll be watching for is indications that there is a pathway to a peaceful transition in place. We do know that there are plans moving very quickly to establish an interim government. And in fact, just today, I believe the army chief announced that the plan is to actually have a swearing in that interim government tomorrow. But we don't really know much about the interim government beyond that. I assume soon we'll find out who's going to be in it. We do know, of course, that Muhammad Yunus will be leading it, which is really quite extraordinary for so many reasons. But we don't know what the time frame would be for an interim government. How long would it be interim? Would it really be interim? Would there be plans for elections? This is still very unknown now. And I think, you mentioned the army. I think it's, as you know, in Bangladesh, there is a history. Bangladesh is, its first few decades, there is a legacy of military rule, heavy military involvement in politics. That has not been the case in more recent decades. And over the 15 consecutive years that Sheikh Hasina was in power, the military, generally speaking, stayed behind the barracks, was not involved in politics. But now it's been thrust back into politics because of this extraordinary vacuum that's emerged with Hasina's ouster. The BNP, at least now, is weak and divided. The Awami League is pretty much out of the picture. You have other small political parties that will be involved in the interim government and the political scene moving forward. You also have the issue of the leaders of the protest movement who have been very vocal on how they want to see the political situation play out. Might there be a role for some of them? Right. We don't know. We don't have a sense yet. And that's why the uncertainty of everything is what makes me a bit nervous. Final point. Yesterday was not as violent as the day before, but there are still concerns about looting, attacks on religious minorities. That has to be dealt with right away.
Yeah, there is still a lot of violence on the streets, is what we've been hearing also. I mean, the press seems to play up, I guess the jubilation is a fair word. That's the word Muhammad Yunus actually used, that this change has actually finally occurred after such a struggle to get to this point. But yeah, on the streets, it's still a particularly scary situation right now. But I have to ask you, Michael, I'm sorry, I'll stick with you for a second, because what we do know is that Muhammad Yunus is now the head of this transitional government. Talk to me about if he is really a unifying figure that is good in this case. A little bit more about whether you trust him to keep this situation interim, whether he can maintain his position with the military here that helped put him in this space. What do you think of him going forward as a leader?
He's a fascinating figure, of course. The most famous citizen of Bangladesh, Nobel laureate. He's well known overseas, but in Bangladesh, he actually has been a polarizing figure in the sense that he became a very sharp critic of Sheikh Hasina and her government, and he was then saddled with legal charges that were very likely politically motivated. But he actually has been a flashpoint at home. With the Awami League out of the picture now, I think that he'll have a lot of respect and trust from those that will be in the mix, so to speak, in the political situation. And indeed, it was the protest leaders that are very influential right now. They had specifically asked that he be the one that lead the interim government. Clearly, the army and the other political parties, the NP, everyone is okay with this. Otherwise, he wouldn't be in this position where he can lead the interim government. But he's not a political figure. He doesn't have experience as a political figure, so it's unclear.
He tried to be.
Sorry?
He tried to be over a decade ago. Yeah, that didn't work out well.
It didn't work out very well. He's got another chance for now.
Yeah.
But I don't think that he's the long-term solution. I think that potentially he could be someone that brings some sense of calm and leads this interim government, but he's not the long-term solution.
Okay. Let me come back to Farzana then and ask you where all of this then leaves the BNP. Michael pointed out that your party is in a somewhat weak position, and your leader now, though, Khaleda Zia, has at least just been released from prison. I mean, do you think the BNP is in a position now to facilitate this transition and participate strongly in an upcoming election?
Yeah, thank you. I have just listening carefully the Michael's statements and also Zaman's statements. I can make it clear to everyone, like BNP has been suffering since 15 years. This BNP has invested thousands of lives. The thousands of their workers and leaders, hundreds of their workers and leaders have been subjected to enforced disappearances and extrajudicial killing. So BNP has never been a weak party. Rather, since our leader Begum Khaleda Zia has been released last day, and just few hours back, she has given her statements, and in one of our meeting today that has been held a few hours back. So I can tell very clearly the situation right now is prevailing in this country. The fascist regime has ended, but the way for a democratic Bangladesh yet to start. So this is a very, very critical situation. So in the situation, BNP has demanded that we want just 3 months time. So this government, this interim government, obviously the Nobel laureate, Mr. Yunus, we welcome him. We take him as a guardian just to make things happen. Just to give relief to these people of this country. So we are trying to, and we will cooperate each and every possible way to that interim government, so that the liberation we got right now at the stake of hundreds of young lives, hundreds of young bloods, that cannot be vitiated. So within 3 months, we demanded for a free and fair election, and the people wants to give their vote, cast their vote to elect their representative to run the country, a democratic Bangladesh.
Fair enough. Okay,
so BNP is ready to cooperate.
Yeah, let me ask then, Zaman, if does this 3 months that Farzana is talking about, does it sound realistic to you? And where do you see the leadership, particularly of Muhammad Yunus, now going forward in this transitional government? Where do you see that playing into the election? Also, will all the other political parties, do you think, be allowed to participate, including Jamaat-e-Islam, which some actually are saying could kind of throw a spanner into the works, because it is the one party that really seems to be the most organized going into another election?
Okay. I mean, there is no easy answer to this question. given the context of 15 or nearly 16 years of a dictatorial regime that initially we heard from our other colleagues that has destroyed the institutions. And as a human rights defender, we have documented, and our colleagues, fellow human rights defenders have documented the cases, the kind of functionality of the institutions and dysfunctionality, the level of it. So I don't know whether within 3 months, how much strength the leadership of Professor Muhammad Yunus and the people we still don't know the names who are going to be part of his team are going to have the capacity, efficiency, and courage and kind of challenges to face and fix the very basic problems of many things to happen for the country to offer or the citizens to have an opportunity to exercise their right to vote with a very transparent and credible manner. And if 3 months are enough to reshuffle the institutions that has been structured throughout the hierarchy that the Sheikh Hasina regime has left with the extremely politicized recruitment from the top to bottom of each of these institutions. So I don't have instant answer to all these questions, but if the election,
can I ask you
the
though,
environment
Zaman,
is created.
as a
Yes?
Bangladeshi, you say you're not sure how the leadership of Muhammad Yunus will work out, but I do want to ask you how you think of his position in Bangladesh just as one of the most famous Bangladeshis ever. Do people trust him? Do they trust his institution, Grameen Bank? Because there were many accusations that there was, corruption within that it exploited the poor. Sheikh Hasina obviously tried to file, many cases against him, saying that the entire institution was basically corrupt and did an injustice. But what do you think the general feeling is in Bangladesh toward Grameen Bank, toward Muhammad Yunus?
Grameen Bank, it has made incredible contributions to the society, but I am not sure, as far as I did not have access to the internal affairs, that how much corruption is there, or if there is any corruption within the Grameen Bank itself. But overall, Professor Yunus is a globally reputed person, very good friendship with the West, but at the same time, he did not become vocal about the institutional problem, about the massive gross human rights problem of the country, until he personally and his institution, Grameen Bank, was exceptionally started facing the problem under the Sheikh Hasina regime.
Right.
So we have heard about the problem from his mouth and from his institution with criticism very recently. So if his feeling is true, and we have reasons to believe that he is extremely disturbed by the experiences that he and Grameen Bank had, and now he has got a chance to rebuild the institutions and leave a legacy of himself. That he suffered the institutional problem disproportionately and maybe unfairly, and he got the chance to fix many of those problems under his leadership.
Something
and offer the country a better reformed state with the system of checks and balances.
Right. We're down to our last few minutes. So, Michael, I do actually have to finish with this question, because this is, again, being watched very closely, all of this, by not just Bangladesh's neighbors, but the international community. Sheikh Hasina has, of course, fled to India, one of her allies, because India did back her in her leadership and the father's leadership against the fight for independence against Pakistan. What do you think are the interests now, particularly from India, in what's going to happen in the lead up to another election here?
I think no country is more impacted by these changes in Bangladesh than India. It invested so heavily in Sheikh Hasina and her party. It was very close to Sheikh Hasina. Prime Minister Modi in India had a close personal relationship with her. They saw eye to eye on a lot of things. And for many years, India viewed any alternative, any political alternative to Sheikh Hasina and her party as something detrimental to Indian interests. So India is in a tough spot. It's very concerned about the stability risks, and certainly it's very concerned about the reported attacks on Bangladeshi Hindus. I think the immediate concern for India, though, is the border. I think India's concern, its border with Bangladesh, it's concerned that if there is extended unrest, you could have increased refugee flows coming into India, and that's something that New Delhi would not want to see happen. I think for the rest of the region, really the rest of the world, it's all about hoping that we see stabilization restored sometime soon. Bangladesh receives a lot of investments from a number of countries, including China, for that matter, Japan, and of course the Western countries. Bangladesh has a close trade relationship with the U.S. and the EU. So I think that there's going to be a lot of watching and waiting nervously, hoping that things calm down sooner rather than later.
Okay, Michael Kugelman, that will have to be the final word. I'd like to thank all three of my panelists so much for joining us on this edition of the Newsmakers, and of course thank our viewers as well. Remember, you can follow us on X, and do be sure to subscribe to our YouTube channel. I'm Andrea Sankey. We'll see you next time.